Welcome 32 and everybody. This is another 2-round mock draft coming to you from yours truly. My name's DJ Wengert, the lead draft analyst for 32 beat writers. Man, we've got the first 18 picks of the NFL draft order finalized. So, of course, excited to run through all those. And, barring trades, which we are actually going to have a trade in this video, that's going to be the first 18 picks, and that's going to be the order of the teams. And I'm sure there's going to be some movement in there before the draft night, one or the other. And, of course, playoff seedings and playoff games are going to determine the back 14 picks. But with more than half of the draft order finalized, of course, wanted to bring y'all an updated 2-round mock draft. Be sure to if you're seeing this on YouTube, comment your thoughts. Who's your favorite team? Who went too high? Who went too low? Who's the right fit and right pick that you're looking at for your squad? If you're watching this on X, feel free to DM me with any questions or any other fits that you like for your favorite squad. Leave your thoughts replying to this. Of course, give us a follow as well on X. Awesome. Let's not belabor the point. Let's go ahead and jump right into it, starting with the Tennessee Titans picking at number 1 overall. Yeah, big development from yesterday. Obviously, with the Patriots win, Tennessee, honestly, really one of the biggest winners of the day. I'm going to have them go Cam Ward. He's my quarterback 1. Like the willingness to throw from multiple arm angles. The arm talent's there. If you believe Albert Breer, there is some love for Cam Ward in the building there in Tennessee. But I think with the number 1 pick, they are probably going to go the rookie quarterback route. Will be interesting to see if this team does decide to go the veteran market. But with the way the draft order played out, and it doesn't have to be Cam Ward, it could be Shadir Sanders. I think that's going to be a conversation we have throughout the rest of this draft cycle. But I'm going off my quarterback rankings. Cam Ward, number 1 overall. Takes us to the Cleveland Browns. And this is going to be really interesting to watch too because of the Deshaun Watson of it all, right? Like restructured contract, hard to get rid of him before the 26th season. But then also there's reports coming out today when I'm recording this on Monday that he's had a setback with his injury. So a lot to figure out here. I could have gone Shadir Sanders. I do wonder if this team ultimately does go the Kirk Cousins route instead and just kind of give him a Russ deal, right? Like someone else is paying a lot of money. We'll just bring you here, try to rehabilitate your, kind of status and how you're viewed in the league. And it's a good spot for Kirk because, he gets to reunite with Kevin Stefanski, his former offensive coordinator for a little bit in Minnesota. So I wonder if that's in play. And with that said, I'm going to have the Browns take Travis Hunter. He's going to be the number 1 player on my big board, one of just a couple of blue chips that I have in this class. And again, if they're not going to go the quarterback route because of Watson, if they feel like they can make it work with Kirk Cousins, also conversation we had, we're going to have a quarterback go here at 3, but I think that's kind of situation dependent on, Dayball and Shane. They are coming back. They need to draft a quarterback. The Browns, it comes down to how much leash you give Stefanski and, Andrew Berry, but could see a world where 1, they trade down from 2, try to get the rest of the roster cheaper if you're paying all that money to Deshaun Watson. If they get Kirk Cousins back and he's just as bad as he was this year, if Deshaun Watson's as bad as he was this year as well, odds are they're in the top of the draft order for next year, and odds are you'd rather draft in 2026 than 25. Again, with the caveat of how much room do you give this coaching staff and front office, right? I don't think the Giants have the flexibility to wait another year. The Browns, maybe, just maybe, but that's a conversation between ownership and them. I'm not in the room. I can't speculate too hard on this. Would love to see the Browns trade back, but not going to do that here. Instead, going to have them stick and pick the best player in the draft with Travis Hunter. Then we get to the Giants. As mentioned, they're going to go quarterback here. Shadir Sanders. It's just, this team got a lot worse once, Daniel Jones was, not the starting quarterback. You get the quote-unquote fluke win. You get the big win against the Colts. Can't go winless at home, so I respect their efforts there. And ultimately, they still get the opportunity to draft a quarterback somewhere here in the top 3. Shadir is going to be an interesting fit for Brian Daboll. In a lot of ways, I've seen some people speculating Shadir is a better fit for Callahan and co. And then Daboll probably more inclined to like Cam Ward. We're speculating. Again, we're not in the room really there. I'm just going off my quarterback rankings. That's why the order is what it is. But you could easily flip these 2 picks. There's no doubt about it that like Tennessee, barring a surprise, they go veteran route. They're looking for a quarterback of the future. Doesn't seem like it's Will Levis. And the Giants, if you've watched the Giants this year, they're looking for a quarterback of the future. And Shadir Sanders, with his accuracy, ball placement, does make for an interesting fit with a big play type of threat in Malik Neighbors. And we're going to add more to this receiver room later on in this mock draft. So an interesting possibility. Let me know what order do you think these quarterbacks, who's a better fit really for Tennessee and the Giants? I think I might flip it if we're talking about best fit, but we're talking about my board. Who should go first? I'll take Cam Ward just ever so slightly over Shadir Sanders. To the New England Patriots, I'm going to go with Kelvin Banks Jr. here. Him or Will Campbell, I'm totally good with here. Campbell, we'll see what the arm length measurements are. If they're at 33 inches, I'm comfortable with him playing tackle. If it's anything shorter than that, let's start having a conversation then. but I've heard, 33 and a quarter is going to be what it's at. And I think his tape's good enough to play tackle. So again, you could go Will Campbell here. I've just been doing some tape rechecks and, just watching some teams play in Texas. And dude, Kelvin Banks is just a monster. When he lights you up in the run game, man, he is just laying dudes out. And you can see, like the Michigan game, not a whole lot that went super in the favor of, Michigan in that game. So, take it with a grain of salt. It was a pretty good game from Texas. But a lot of times they were just running behind big number 78, and he was just paving the way on top of awesome athleticism, great feet mirroring skills. And I love what he is as a pass protector. So good combination of building block skill sets there for a potential cornerstone left tackle that, and I'm not done drafting tackle, to be honest with you. I think the Patriots have a couple pieces that could start long-term at guard. I'm questioning both their tackles right now. And honestly, and that includes Michael Onwenu. I think, honestly, let's slide him back inside the guard. So that's going to be the focus here for the New England Patriots. We're going to draft a couple tackles, including Kelvin Banks Jr. All right, let's get to the Jacksonville Jaguars. Let's go with Mason Graham here at the number 5 overall pick. Him, Will Johnson, Abdul Carter. I'm really cool with any of these guys. They have a few more names at edge, so maybe that knocks Carter out of here, but he would be the next highest player on my board. Mason Graham makes a lot of sense. This team needs a defensive interior presence upgrade there, especially if they're going to continue to play Eric Armstead out on the edge. Of course, today they fired Doug Peterson, but they're keeping Trent Baalke. So, I don't think Mason Graham has super long arms. Maybe that takes him out of the equation here. It's more of a Will Johnson route. I don't hate that whatsoever. If you watch the Jags this year, that defense needs a couple pieces. The secondary really could use it, but I also think that interior D-line. So either one of those two Michigan Wolverines, I'm cool with. But here, let's go with Mason Graham. All right, to the Raiders here at 6. We're going to go quarterback in the second round, which probably gives away who that's going to be. But for right now, let's go Ashton Jeanty. Tetairoa McMillan also in consideration here, outside wide receiver. If they bring back Myers, he's probably going to be in their slot. Brock Bowers kind of plays that same role. But, Tet plus Bowers, really like that as a 1-2 punch pass catching wise. But also this team just needs a newfound presence in the backfield, partnered up with who we're going to take in the second round. It's a really interesting, kind of read option combo, so to speak. Again, not trying to give away too much here, but probably already have. But Ashton Jeanty gives this, running back room an absolute surplus in juice right now. Just an absolute shot in the arm of juice they just don't really have. Plus, what you get out of him as a pass catcher. He's one of the best players in this class. He is going to be one of my blue chippers. It's just going to be a question of, why these teams picking the top 10 have holes that are larger needs than running back. And the same is true for the Raiders. But here, I think the value starts to line up. We'll take a blue chipper. We'll get our quarterback in the second round. We'll try to turn this offense around and try to build on something here in Las Vegas. To the New York Jets here at 7. This is where I'm going to have Will Johnson come off the board. DJ Reed, an impending free agent. So this makes a lot of sense. Replace one with the other. Get a lot cheaper, get a lot younger at that position. And also think a 1-2 punch, 6'3", Sauce Gardner on one side, 6'2", Will Johnson on the other. Both have great feel in zone coverage while also having great body types and athletic traits to go with it to be man press, kind of specialists. Will Johnson, it's just kind of going back and, I know this year was a bit of a letdown, but you just see his comfortability and his understanding of how good of an athlete he is, right? Like he gives you just enough room to where he's got great closing ability. He'll go make a play on the football and it'll leave you a little bit of room if you start to get behind him, but he's always able to get back into the play. And really, he's just trying to play the quarterback. Please throw me one that I know I can jump. He does that late against USC with that screen, so he's playing the game of it at a high level. Plus what he can do in zone, just got a great football IQ, great understanding of his assignment. And again, the body type says this guy should be really good at man coverage at the next level. Love partnering up with Sauce Gardner here. Carolina Panthers, Abdul Carter. You're going to see this in an abundance of mocks. This or Will Johnson, right? Please, for a defense that has given up the most points in the NFL this year, I think set the NFL record for most points allowed yesterday for points in a season, 17 games albeit, but nonetheless, this is a bad defense, and they need cornerstone pieces. Abdul Carter, Will Johnson, one of those two has got to be here. Carter's my edge one. I do expect him to play against Notre Dame. Will be a huge showcase for him. And, first step explosiveness, the hand refinement's getting better, more moves being put on display over the course of the season, natural bend. Abdul Carter, yes, there's going to be some work there, but he has all the pieces and all the tools that you want for a true cornerstone edge player, the next level. All right, to the New Orleans Saints here at 9. This is where I'm going to have Will Campbell come off the board. And you can shuffle us a few different ways. I don't think Trevor Penning's been awesome. I wouldn't hate exploring. Hey, I know you just taught Talisha Fuanga to play left tackle. Could you flip him back over to the right side, plug in Will Campbell at left tackle? I think that could be an avenue. You could also just keep continuity's sake, right? Give Penning another shot at right tackle, see if Fuanga can build on year 2 and get even better at left tackle, and then just play Will Campbell at left guard. I'm cool with either one. 9 may be a little rich for some to draft an interior offensive lineman. Will Campbell's going to be a really good one, so I don't really mind it here. Inside the top 10, if you're getting an all-pro type of interior offensive lineman, I think the value can line up there just fine. But again, ultimately, I think Penning might be better as a guard. So shuffling, you have to talk to the guys. Fuaga, are you comfortable going back to the right side? Would you like that? Would you not like it? Conversations I can't have, but I think no matter how you put it, there's a way to shuffle these guys around to get the best 5 on that New Orleans O-line, which is looking for an upgrade for sure. All right, to the Chicago Bears. I'm going to go Josh Simmons. From everything that I've heard, sounds like he's going to be back in time to where like the injury is not going to be a concern for, rookie training camp, rookie mini camp, training camp, et cetera, et cetera. Dynamic athlete, love his ability to climb to the second level, good power for his frame too. Really nice cornerstone left tackle potential here. Similar to where the Cardinals are kind of getting with Paris Johnson Jr., you see great feet, holds up in pass protection, enough anchor to hold his own against power rushers, but also shows that in the run game. And I think a lot of the same traits are there for Josh Simmons. And I think you saw, Ohio State and how big of an impact he was, right? Like he gets hurt midway through that Oregon game. They make do the rest of the way, but then there's a couple games right after where they are missing Josh Simmons very bad. Even in the college football playoff, I think Dalton Wasserman from PFF did a great job talking about how they've changed some of their run game concepts. I think a big part of that is because you can't do the Chip Kelly zone blocking stuff without Josh Simmons in there. So they've kind of retooled it, playing a lot more gap, a lot more counter concepts in there. I think, again, all that speaks to how important Josh Simmons was. So even when he's not out there, you just see how good of a football player and how much impact he can have on an offense. And the Bears multiple offensive linemen. Going to need a few this offseason. All right, to the San Francisco 49ers, I would absolutely love this fit. A collective first step get off between Nick Bosa and Jalen Walker might be top in the league right there as a 1-2 punch when it comes to first step get off. And just like Abdul Carter and a few others edge rushers, like a Mike Green too later on in the draft, they just have so much explosiveness and so much speed that they bring power and physicality and violence with it, even if their size says, not the biggest, not the strongest. Force equals mass times acceleration, where the mass might be a little lacking. These guys make up for it with that acceleration, right? And you multiply it, and you ultimately can get the same thing. Not to get too science, I'm not great in that stuff. But nevertheless, Jalen Walker on one side, Nick Bosa on the other. Sign me up for that. And then you talked about this defensive line over the course of the season, especially as Javon Hargrave goes down, Bosa misses a couple games. You really start to see how thin this D line that we normally are accustomed to it being the strength of the 49ers, or one of the key strengths of the 49ers. This year is kind of a two-man show. I'd like to diversify that portfolio, get one more guy in the mix. I think Walker here at 11 is really solid value. To the Dallas Cowboys here at 12, I'm going to go with Tetairoa McMillan as a compliment to CeeDee Lamb. You play him on the outside. I'm a big slot, fan, receivers, corners. I want to put my best guy, honestly, on the inside in a lot of ways. Corners, it's a little different. Some guys are more comfortable with that than others. But, for offense, simply put, a three-way go instead of a two-way go. For a guy like CeeDee Lamb, more options the better. So I like Tet McMillan being the sacrificial X, to steal a term from Matt Harmon. Play him on the outside. He was awesome at that all year long for Arizona. Also, shifty route runner, a good yards after the catch weapon, and his frame makes him a really dynamic threat inside the red zone. And again, it frees up CeeDee Lamb you can still play him outside, but you can play him off the line of scrimmage, play him in motion because of that, or just keep him in the slot and give him a ton of flexibility there. So I think it just adds a little bit more diversity to that Dallas Cowboys offense. This is one of the teams that, with a loss yesterday, actually shot up a handful of spots. So really interesting to see where the Dolphins go here. Malachi Starks, if they lose Javon Holland, could make a lot of sense. But in this spot, I'm finding that I might be one of the highest people in the draft community. I know he's got some fans, but like Walter Nolan to me. And again, I was just doing some defensive line rechecks. This guy is an absolute difference maker. This guy is a tackle for loss machine. And he's not the biggest guys, right? So he's not doing it with mass or anything like that. But like the Florida game, especially like late first half, early second half, they're just getting kind of pushed around in the run game. And then Walter Nolan takes it on his own and says, you know what? I got to shoot gaps, got to get past this center, got to get past this guard, create some TFLs. And because of that, Ole Miss started to make it a game in that one. But in that one, it felt like Walter Nolan was really the only guy wanting to play some run defense for that Ole Miss defensive line. But also, I think the first step juice, he's willing to use his arm length, right? Like, I don't think it's going to be the longest arm measurement we get from interior defensive line, but willing to use that, add a little bit of, different type of pass rush element to his game. Could add a few more moves for sure. He's not a finished product, but he's looking a whole lot more like the 5-star recruit that, was the number one recruit coming out of high school over at Travis Hunter. He's starting to live up to that potential. Obviously, first year without Christian Wilkins in Miami. I think Walter Nolan's got a lot of the same stuff that worked for Wilkins, and I think that would be a huge addition back to that D-line in Miami. All right, to the Indianapolis Colts, laziest pick you'll see in just about every mock today that I'm sure you're seeing, Tyler Warren. 6'6", 260, moving like that, can block in line, is the pass-catching offense for Penn State. Yeah, sign me up for that. Indy's kind of in the same spot, too, that like Green Bay was a few years ago, where it's like, yeah, I like a lot of these receivers. There's a lot of potential with these guys, but Michael Pittman's like probably the closest one to a one, like closest player to being a number one wide receiver. But I still don't know if he's necessarily a wide receiver one. I'd really rather him be like a high end two, like a 1B. So it's kind of the same spot that Green Bay was in a few years ago. Like a lot of these guys, but is there a difference maker? Green Bay adds a Tucker Kraft, adds a Luke Musgrave. I think they're still probably looking for a true like number one game-changing receiver. Not the conversation for today's video, but I almost wonder if the Colts could try to do the same thing, right? Like we got a lot of really good receivers. If we added a true difference-making tight end, could that help put us over the top? I think Tyler Warren is, one of the best tight end prospects I've seen. I'm not going to say he's the best. I still think that title belongs to Brock Bowers, but Tyler Warren, a half tier to a tier below that is still a really impressive tight end prospect. And of course, a natural fit for the Colts where they can get better at that position. He's a good blocker, which makes the run game of AR and Jonathan Taylor that much more dangerous. To the Atlanta Falcons here at pick number 15. This would be as ideal a situation as possible, right? Matt Judon just has not lived up to the third round pick they gave up. Arnold Ebiketie, a little bit lighter in size, had a good year, but he's more that kind of win with speed, bend, finesse-esque type of mold for an edge rusher. So who better to compliment him than 6'4", 285 pounds, still nimble for that size, Nick Scorton, who has as deep of a bag when it comes to pass rush moves in this year's class, does a great job playing with power and arm length, which I expect to be two of the highlight traits for him compared to others in this class, specifically the arm length. So a different type of body type than a lot of these edge rushers, like a Carter, like a Jalen Walker, who are, off-ball linebackers turn into edge rushers, lighter in frame. Nick Scorton's a different flavor, but I think he's the flavor that the Falcons would most want to add to that edge room. Jahad Campbell, honorable mention here. If you can get Jalen Walker, that'd be awesome as well. Just a couple of the names I've seen some Falcons accounts tweeting about that I do think would be awesome fits, no doubt. All right, next up, Arizona Cardinals. I'm going to go with interior defensive lineman Kenneth Grant. Just such a disruptor from the interior. Great run defender, awesome athlete, and you can see the potential there as a pass rusher, right? Like there's a couple of reps where I don't want to call it a ghost move there, but it's, shades of it where he's going against the center and they're starting to backpedal and Kenneth Grant just kind of sidesteps out of the way, Euro steps, if you will, out of the way of the offensive lineman because you have to respect his first step get off and how much power he has. But once he starts getting you lean back, he's nimble enough to just go around you. So a really interesting set of moves for what he could be as a pass rusher at the next level on top of already being a force of nature against the run. And he could play the one tech, the nose, basically, or he could play three tech. So some flexibility for an Arizona D-line that I think could use a couple pieces at both those spots. All right, Cincinnati Bengals, you're up next here at 17. I'm going to go with Malachi Starks. The safety tandem, just the safety play in general, just hasn't been good enough since they lost Jesse Bates. Malachi Starks could be one of the best box safeties in the NFL. He could soon be someone you use in the slot, depending on what happens with Mike Hilton. You could see a world where they want to move on from him. Also, maybe Dax Hill takes over that spot. That could be an interesting fit for him long-term, just throwing it out there. Or you just play him at over-the-top free safety and try to make up for what you lost in Jesse Bates. Obviously, Lou Anarumo's gone, so it's going to be a new, defense in regards to scheme and kind of the bones of it. But I also think Malachi Starks is, day one, the best safety that they have in that room. No doubt about it. And he could go even higher than 17, so really good value here for Cincy. And not a fit I see a whole lot in mock drafts, but one that, for me, this is kind of hard for me to pass on if I'm the Bengals. All right, this is where we're going to have our trade of the video. It's still early on, so I don't like doing a whole lot of these trades because so much can still be, up in the air. And that being said, the Steelers could lose in the first round and, that could change their pick as well, right? But I'm just going to do a third, fourth pick swap here. 86 for 134, moving up 4 spots for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I am going to force the trade, but points wise, it adds up pretty close when you're looking at the Draft Tech NFL trade chart based on the Jimmy Johnson trade chart. So don't hate me too much if you don't like it. It's pretty close. But this allows the Steelers to draft Luther Burden III. I like this a ton. With his yards after the catch ability, he really does kind of feel like an Arthur Smith type of receiver. If they do bring him back to the OC, I don't know, kind of up in the air on that. Maybe not. I think there's been some good this year, but also a lot of disappointing there. Nevertheless, he's a great compliment to George Pickens, who's pretty much vertical, going down the field, win contested catch balls, a slant kind of off of it when you're playing the deep ball. Burden, great yards after the catch, underneath weapon, while also having long speed and the ability to get open deep down the field. So even in that regard, he doesn't really step on the toes of Roman Wilson too, which is part of why I love this, right? You did sink a third round pick into Roman Wilson and you just refuse to use him. Maybe the playoffs will change that. But if you bring in Burden, I think there's a world where him, Pickens, and Roman Wilson can all coexist. That being said, Arthur Smith does not use a whole lot of 3 receiver sets. So again, part of that is TBD if they bring back Arthur Smith as the offensive coordinator. All right, the 19th pick, I'm going to give the Houston Texans Wyatt Milam. He could play right tackle or he could play inside a guard. Texans fans, let me know what you think about Titus Howard. Is he better at guard or tackle? I've seen some people argue one use PFF grade for one and then the other for the other. So I don't really know. I can't say that I've become a Titus Howard expert. I will try to catch up and see what I think when watching the film, but I'd love to hear from Texans fans. Is he a better guard or tackle? Either way, though, Milam is getting some conversations around him that maybe he is going to have to play inside. If that's the case, boom, plug him in at left guard. He's an upgrade over Kenyon Green for sure. Let's give Titus Howard another year at right tackle. Or you let Blake Fisher try to improve. He was a promising right tackle prospect to me at Notre Dame, just never really got any better at college. Maybe the NFL is able to kind of flip that switch. Or you just play White Milam, flip him over to the right side, and you play Titus Howard at guard. I'm cool with either one. Texans fans, let me know your preferred outcome with this pick. All right, next up, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I'm going to have James Pierce Jr. be the pick here. They've just got to get better at the edge spot. Pierce brings a ton of first step get off and a lot of bend. He is noticeably thin, which is like complicated because you already have a Kalijah Cansey player on that defensive line. So two guys who are a little bit smaller in frame. May not be the best run defenders, but they also have a Logan Hall, a Vita Vea, a Joe Tryon-Shoyinka. We'll see how much longer he's there, that said. But a couple of these guys that profile, and at least Logan Hall and Vita Vea, they have played the run well. So those guys could help kind of hide the limitations against the run for a Pierce and a Kalijah Cansey. That said a lot of the same stuff about Cansey, right? Not many places where he could go to be, better hidden against the run than lining up right next to Vita Vea. That's ideal. And they'll try to find a way to use James Pierce Jr. That said, even if he only plays, passing situations, third downs, the fourth quarter, et cetera, this is a good enough team. They'll be winning enough games to where I think they'll get a solid 400 to 550 maybe snaps out of James Pierce Jr. They'll be in high leverage spots. He'll be a NFL-ready pass rush winner. And if that's all you're getting year one, I think that's a huge boost to this defense that just Yaya Diaby, some flashes. Don't get me wrong. Kalijah Cansey's been good, but still at the edge spot looking for that difference maker. Double-digit sack type of year guy. James Pierce Jr. definitely has that potential. All right, to the Denver Broncos. This is where I'm going to have Jihad Campbell come off the board. I'm not normally, big on like linebackers round one. Sometimes the position value makes it really tough for these mock drafts, but Jihad Campbell's tape makes it easy to get him in the first round, right? Like very good movement skills and fluidity and coverage, like a good understanding of his assignment there, but also violent when tackling downhill against the run, but also splitting blocks, people to be used as a pass rusher. The question is going to be, what is this official number, right? 244. Nowadays, another linebacker like Chris Paul Jr., he's, 6'1", 235, right? So, like, we're living this day and age where linebackers are getting smaller and smaller and smaller. If Campbell's truly 244, 245-ish, cool. Not really a concern. I just have a feeling that number might be a little inflated, and I want to see what the conversation might be thereafter. Again, don't know for sure. We'll see once we get there, but an absolute boost to that linebacking core there in Denver, who doesn't have anybody who's super special. Vance Joseph likes to blitz his linebackers, so I think this is a really intriguing fit for what Campbell can do in the pass rush game. On top of, again, day one, he's like one of their better coverage guys and run defenders from that linebacker spot. So I think it makes an impact in multiple ways for this Denver defense, especially with how Vance Joseph wants to use his linebackers. All right, Seattle Seahawks, they trade back at a third, fourth swap, and then ultimately get the guy I probably would have given them at 18 anyways, Cameron Williams, right? Abe Lucas just missed too much time. And Cameron Williams, man, I think you see the impact he has on a Texas team when he can't play against Arizona State, and all of a sudden they're running wide zone against Clemson, running up and down the field, and then their run game all of a sudden gets a lot less dynamic, lot less yards per carry, and all of a sudden Wisner plays a much smaller, and Alfred Blue too. Like those guys' impact on that game against Arizona State gets minimized. And some of that, Kelvin Banks, I know got hurt early second half. He might not have been playing 100%, but they missed that other tackle on the other side, who is a behemoth of a human being, plays with an abundance of power, both in his anchor against pass protection, but also when climbing and lighting up second-level defenders or guys in the secondary. And plus his movement skills on top of that frame really do fit a wide zone scheme. So I think he fits with what Seattle wants to do. And again, Abe Lucas just missed so much time. It's time to start thinking about the contingency plan / replacement plan for that player. Cameron Williams only 1 year starter, but I do think with what he's shown you, you see there's a high ceiling. It just comes down to kind of cleaning up the little things that come from a first-year starter. I trust with what Seattle's able to do with Charles Cross, a guy I liked a ton. I know he's missed some time too, but I think they could work that same magic on Cameron Williams. Potentially have an awesome 1-2 punch there at left and right tackle. All right, next up, Los Angeles Rams. I'm going to go with Benjamin Morrison here. Waiting to find out more information on that hip injury. That definitely scares me, especially for a guy who is, when you watch him, especially in man coverage, very fluid, ability to flip the hips, run down the field. Like there's, he's a really good player with really good tape, but that hip injury could throw a wrench in it and how you project him to be after that injury. So TBD there, 100%. Want to hear some more reports on that. But nevertheless, the Rams have got to upgrade that secondary. They have just got to get more coverage players. I think they could be players for Jair Alexander, assuming he is going to be gone from Green Bay. I think they make a ton of sense. He feels like a guy who wants to go to Miami or LA with Tyreek leaving Miami, kind of feels like everyone might flock to LA to get that, player-friendly, nice, warm environment. Also, the Chargers in the mix there too, which, throw in some Tyreek Hill trade destinations. I'd love to hear what people are thinking there. That's going to be a fascinating one. But Morrison absolutely gives this team a potential cornerback one and a boost in that secondary from a coverage standpoint that they just don't have a high-end guy, a difference-making guy. And I think Benjamin Morrison has the potential to be that dude. Sticking at the corner spot, I'm going to give the Green Bay Packers Javon Ravel, another guy who's season-ending injury, but I love the frame, love the athleticism, love the ball skills. So I'm going to take the flyer on Ravel. He is going to the Shrine Bowl, and I do hope he gets to compete there. TBD on it. He's fully recovered from the injury to do so, but I'm also interested to see, how many meetings he has and, what that ultimately looks like, what the buzz is with his meetings with those teams there at Shrine. Going to be fascinating. But I like the player, and he's a multiple ball of clay. And for a man-heavy coverage defense, a lot of cover three, I do think he's a really good fit for what Jeff Hafley wants to do on that side of the ball. All right, to the Los Angeles Chargers. This will be a pick that I mock left, right, and center. Jamar Stewart, we'll have question marks about it. Mack and Bosa are both coming back. Tuli Tuipulotu can play inside and out. Let's just say one of those two edge guys is gone. Tuipulotu kicks outside to play the other edge rush spot. Insert Jamar Stewart, who can play some early down edge because he's such a good, long, athletic player, 6'6", 290, can play the run at a high level. And then you get into a passing situation, fourth quarter, third and long, et cetera, those types of spots where you just fold them inside, get Tuipulotu, Mack or Bosa, one of those two guys, let's just say that is back, plus Jamar Stewart out on the field. That, to me, is the most ideal way to kind of bridge the gap because you're going to lose one of those guys on the D-line. I think Jamar Stewart helps fill in what you're going to lose while also giving you some flexibility and the chance to get better, specifically at the three-tech spots. I think they have some room to improve at that specific position in the Chargers defense. All right, the Commanders are next up at 26. I'm going to go with left tackle Ariante Ursary. Coleman's been, a solid player at times, but also do think like guard's probably his best spot. But even if I'm wrong on that, Coleman does decide to play, or they're going to stick with him at left tackle, I think you can improve upon that right tackle spot in Andrew Wiley. So maybe it's flipping Ariante Ursary over to the right side. I know that's not for everybody. That being said, I think he would be able to handle that. Again, conversations that teams are going to have with him that I can't. That's totally fine. But worst comes to worst, too. Like, I think he's just your left tackle. Coleman plays guard. Like, to me, that makes a lot of sense. I also stand by it. Like, I'd like to see Sam Cosmi get some chances at right tackle. Like to right tackle out of Texas. So I will continue to try to pound the table for that. But nevertheless, Ursary, left tackle, right tackle, I think there's a spot for him as a potential starter for Washington next year. All right, to the Baltimore Ravens. I'm going to go with Mykel Williams. I think they're still looking for a little bit more impact at the edge rush spot. And he's a very different type of player than, an Odafe Owe, David Ajabo, these guys that win with first step and bend and athleticism. Mykel Williams is a freaky athlete, but it's more so from the power he can generate at his frame with his length. That's where he gets interesting. And also a guy kind of like Jamar Stewart, move him all over the defensive line, kick him inside in passing downs or in the fourth quarter, play him at the edge on rundowns, especially against a team like the Steelers or, just these AFC opponents that want to control the clock, want to win on the ground, with the exception of the Bengals maybe. But I think he fits a lot of that. But also the Ravens just have a great track record of draft and development. And I would love to see a guy like Mykel Williams, who undoubtedly has a very high ceiling, go to one of these types of landing spots. Don't get overdrafted. Go to a good team. Don't have to start right away. Learn what it's like to be, and he's done a lot of this at Georgia. That's a great program. Don't get me wrong. But go to the next level, be a part of a contending team, get in with that atmosphere. And then by hopefully year 2, year 3, we get to start to see the fruits of what Mykel Williams could actually be at the next level, because definitely high upside play here for the Ravens. All right, to the Minnesota Vikings. I'm going to go with Trey Amos, cornerback out of Ole Miss, a guy that I've really enjoyed going back and checking out. Really fluid mover in zone coverage. My concerns were kind of what he would be in zone coverage, but the more I watched, I don't really have any concerns there. Again, very fluid athlete, and also you can see when they're in zone, he's very actively communicating, which is huge too. So it's just a little check. A little box to check there, but it's ultimately a lot bigger than you would think. And again, I just love what he could be as a man coverage corner. The size, the athleticism, the arm length, all that checks out from that standpoint. And Brian Flores, he's become the zone blitz guy, but I think in key downs, he would like to play a little bit more man coverage. So I think Amos checks that box. But again, I've been more and more impressed with what he is as a zone coverage corner the more I've gotten into his tape. And I do think he'll fit from that standpoint too, if Flores does continue down that route. All right, Buffalo Bills here at 29. Man, Tyleik Williams. At this point, I think he's the best guy on that Ohio State defensive line. Now, I'm a big Jack Sawyer guy, but you will be hard-pressed to find as many plays where Tyleik Williams, like anybody really across the country, there's only a few that can do it more, Tyleik Williams, where you just see pure disruption going on. Tyleik Williams is a nightmare to block one-on-one, and some of that is the man's a behemoth, right, for sure. And he has an abundance of, power with it. But he's very nimble for that size, too. So, You name it. He brings a lot of versatility and a lot of flexibility to his game. I think he's a first-round guy. I think partnering him up with Ed Oliver is super ideal. Williams can be a high-level run defender. Hide Ed Oliver where he's not really great against the run. But then both these guys in passing downs, I think you have them both on the field, really. I think Tyler Williams is a really disruptive player. Probably a guy that can continue to rise up my board. And I think a guy you could have out there in passing downs because the more he does it, I think the better he's going to keep getting at it. And he just already brings a lot of natural disruption with his size and his athleticism. All right, to the Philadelphia Eagles. They're next up here. This is where I'm going to have Jack Sawyer come off the board. I saw Pat McAfee, describing him, competent to J.J. Watt. I'm not going to go that far. But, lunch pail guy, someone that's also like, look at a white edge rusher. Lunch pail is probably one of the first words that comes out of your mouth. That being said, I do like the size. I do like the power he plays with. He has a little bit more bend than JT Tuimoloau. It's not a lot, but it's a little bit more than JTT brings to the table. And also just, I think, a more natural athlete, right? Like I can trust him to drop into coverage a little bit more than JTT, to be a QB spy a little bit more, or like chase down a backside, make a play on the backside pursuit. Like he's more likely to do that to me than JTT. So I like Sawyer here. This is your Brandon Graham replacement. Totally fits that archetype. And I think with his run defense, like he could play pretty much right away for this Philadelphia defensive line. All right, then we get to the Detroit Lions. I'm going to go back to the edge group. I'm going to go with Princely Uman-Mielen. This is just one of those teams that I'm actually not done with edge, right? Like they doubled up at corner first and second rounds. I could see a world where they go into next year and they're like, edge rusher will not be a spot that costs us on a run at the Super Bowl. And Princely Uman-Mielen, yes, like 255 pounds. Against the run, I don't think he's like actively making any major differences, but I also think he's holding up for the most part against, against the run at the point of attack. Like he's not necessarily making any plays, but he's not like losing ground all the time either. But it's definitely not his area of strength. It's his ability to get to the quarterback, pin his ears back, win with speed, very natural bend. Go watch the Georgia game. Him and Jared Ivey lighting up the Bulldogs tackles in that game. That's the tape to go watch if you haven't seen Princely Uman-Mielen. How does he win? Go watch that game and you'll get an idea of it. I just think, he may not be great against the run. Hutchinson, not the longest arm. So does that create a little bit of a liability? Maybe. But this is a team that's going to put points on the board. They're going to have teams trailing, go get some natural pass rush winners, and make life hell for opposing offenses. Kansas City Chiefs here at 32. The rich get richer, right? Like, let's just say Hollywood Brown's gone. You're talking about a wide receiver core, and let's just say DeAndre Hopkins is gone too. A wide receiver core then of Rashee Rice, just your inside guy, Kelsey doing a lot of the same stuff from inline, working in the middle of the field, finding space against zone, et cetera, et cetera. Xavier Worthy is your field stretching guy, yards after the catch threat, starting to come on down the stretch of the season. And then you get this ultimate complementary receiver who can play outside, he can play inside, he can block at a high level, natural route runner, don't have to worry about that, can win at all three levels, very good hands, always comes back to the football. This is just a guy that whoever is in your receiving room, Emeka Egbuka takes it to another level, whether it's a really good room and, promising room, like I think the Chiefs receiver room next year is going to be with a Rice coming back, with Worthy going into year two, and of course, Kelsey there. Or he could be a guy that, like, if you're Pittsburgh, like this could have made sense where it's like, we got GP, but we really need a number two. Like Egbuka would be an awesome number two. And, if not for Luther Burden being available, like would have made a lot of sense at that spot. So whether it's a pad receiver room, Egbuka starts to get it back towards average, maybe a little bit above it. Or if you already have a great one, he fits in it and can complement it in any way you need to. So, an absolute steal of a pick here for the Kansas City Chiefs. This is one that, like, the NFL, can't keep letting them get away with this, to steal the line from Jesse Pinkman. But this would be an absolute diabolical add to that Kansas City offense. Yes, I know tackle. Yes, I understand, corner's a potential other spot too. But if Egbuka is right there at 32 and you're the Chiefs, make it happen at any cost. All right. Let's get on to the second round now. We'll kick things off with the Tennessee Titans here at pick number 33. We gave them a quarterback from Miami to start out the draft. Now let's go get him his teammate, Xavier Restrepo. I think this is a great Tyler Boyd replacement, just a natural route runner who can get open with ease, also good understanding against zone coverage, can sit in soft spots of it, good yards after the catch ability. And I'm also excited to see him at the Senior Bowl. What do those one-on-ones look like? What does the long speed look like? Because, on tape, he makes these big plays. How much of that is just weaving through traffic, yards after the catch stuff? How much of that can be used to the next level for him to actually be, a field stretcher, which would be a really interesting spot. Right now, I'm just kind of seeing him as an underneath, easy offense, sharp right runner against man, find the soft spots against zone, that type of guy, just a high floor, make the offense a little bit easier, and obviously built-in chemistry there with Cam Ward. All right, on to the Cleveland Browns. This is one I'm going to steal from my last mock, Marion Hampton, right? Like, no, not sure if, like, Nick Chubb's going to ever get back to who he once was. If he can't be, Marion Hampton plus Jerome Ford with really nice long speed, good pass catcher. Hampton, between the tackles, bruiser, who once he gets to top end speed, look out. The freight train is coming your way. Love that addition. And if the Browns can get that offensive line back on track to where it has been in years past, Hampton's going to have a ton of success running behind it. All right, to the New York Giants. I promise you we weren't done adding to this offense. Eilick Ayumanner. I see a lot of Cortland Sutton in this guy. He's a redshirt sophomore, so underclassman, pretty young for this class. He's going to be at the Senior Bowl too. Huge opportunity for him. That hey, I may be on the younger side, but this is what I can do against this type of level of competition. Kind of gets lost in the fold because Stanford, that's just not a great team right now. I think he's an NFL ready guy. I think he definitely should go somewhere in the top 40. He brings the size that Malik Neighbors doesn't necessarily have. Ayumanner to play outside, be that sacrificial X, move Neighbors around, kind of like what we talked about with Tetairoa McMillan and CeeDee Lamb earlier for the Dallas Cowboys, doing the same, in theory here for another NFC East team in the New York Giants. And plus, hey, then you get Shadir Sanders, one more weapon, a big body guy here. I would like that a ton for the Giants. All right, to the New England Patriots then. I'm going to go with Mike Green, edge rusher that definitely could go in the first round. Another one of these guys that, you may look at the frame and say, he's not the biggest guy, but the first step juice is there, and the power that he plays with because of his speed and first step explosiveness is certainly something that stands out to me, right? 248 pounds. We'll see if that's the actual weight. If he can get to 250, that would probably ease some of the concerns about what he'll be as an edge rusher, or as a run defender. But as an edge rush complement to Keon White, who already is a really good run defender, I think it could even out there, right? And I think that one other edge spot is something that this defense could add. There's not a whole lot of holes there on that New England defense. I think there's a lot of pieces that are promising, but they need one more edge rusher. Mike Green plus Keon White, that might be the tandem for the future in New England. All right, to the Jacksonville Jaguars, Jahdae Barron. This one would be an absolute slam dunk. If you go Mason Graham first round, you don't get Will Johnson. This is how you even it out, right? So Mason Graham to punch up that interior defensive line. Jahdae Barron, who can play outside corner, where he's been fantastic so far this season. He can play in the slot, where I think they can get better. Safety, they can certainly get better. I think Jahdae Barron, no matter what you're looking for, he makes that secondary a lot better in Jacksonville. All right, to the Raiders, as promised, we're going to go quarterback here. Jalen Milroe. I know some people are going to see this. They're going to hate it just because they think he's a day 3 prospect. And I understand, right? There's a lot of tough film there. Like the Oklahoma game's hard to watch. But even in games like the Vanderbilt game where they lose, I don't know if it's necessarily Jalen Milroe's fault. And then you also have games like the Georgia game, the first half of that one, where it's like, whoa, this guy has a lot of special tools and traits here. And really, of the top 3 quarterbacks, which, by the way, Milroe, going to be my quarterback 3, unless Aller decides to declare, he's got the best tools of anybody in this class. Now, it comes with a lot of work. Don't get me wrong. But his athleticism, his arm strength, those are the tools that you want to draft, and especially if you get the chance to draft it here in the second round, right? This is right around where Drew Lock got drafted, right? This top of the second round conversation. I think Jalen Milroe's upside is definitely worth drafting somewhere in this spot. I get it, the floor's low, but if you're the Raiders, do you have anything to lose? You need a franchise guy, and I think Milroe plus Jeanty in the backfield, that at least sells some tickets and get some interest in that backfield. All right, next up, the New York Jets. We're going to have Colston Loveland come off the board. Just a team that, not a whole lot to write about in that tight end position. Loveland could be a guy who goes first round. I've seen him still going in first round of mock drafts. Just fell a little bit with how the board played out and ultimately who I wanted to get in the first round of this one. Not a knock against Loveland. I think he's a really solid pass catcher, really smooth route runner. Could add a little bit of mass to help ease some concerns about can he play in line. I don't think he's the world's best blocker, but he definitely gets in the way, of offensive linemen. It minimum could be this kind of Trey McBride-esque. He's not the world's best blocker, but can do his job. That type of a tight end prospect here. And anything to help boost that Jets pass catching game, I think goes a long way, especially if there's no Rodgers and there's no Devontae Adams potentially next year. All right, to the Chicago Bears for the first of 2 second-round picks. For this first one, I'm going to go with Derek Harmon, who another guy that could easily go in the first round. I'm not the biggest Derek Harmon guy. Sometimes against the run, I feel like he, the 310 versus you used to play at 320 shows a little bit, but also losing 10 pounds, he feels a lot more explosive in that first step. And because that the pass rush production's gotten a whole lot better. Gervon Dexter, there might still something be there, in his upside. Definitely a raw prospect coming out of Florida, so don't want to give up on him yet. I think they can get better there, and I think Derek Harmon steps in and is pretty much right away a better player. And also, like, Zach Pickens hasn't really worked out either, so, maybe moving Gervon Dexter to that other defensive tackle spot, getting Harmon in, maybe that's just ultimately the best route forward while you can still develop Gervon Dexter. All right, to the New Orleans Saints. They're next up here. I'm going to go with Darian Porter. Since they traded Marshall Lattimore, of course, corner's been on my mind, a spot they can get better. Would love to see this team bring in Aaron Glenn. Right? I think that's the culture they're looking to bring. I know it's moving on from one defensive-minded head coach to go to another. When quarterback play is definitely up in the air. I get it. A lot of people want the offensive-minded guy. But I couldn't help but think about Kool-Aid McKinstry, 6'2", man coverage specialist, and an Aaron Glenn defense. Oh, and on the other side, we have Darian Porter, who is an absolute monster at 6'4", 200. We'll see if that's the official weight. The complication here is you see much better, zone coverage grade than man coverage, but the body type, the ball skills, the former wide receiver background, all that says this guy could be a really, really nice man coverage corner at the next level. We'll see if that pans out, but minimum, maybe his zone coverage skill set balances out what him and Kool-Aid McKinstry can do in that defense. But Saints fans, let me know. Are you looking to add to the secondary somewhere in the first 2 picks? Do you like Darian Porter? If not, what corner do you think would complement Kool-Aid McKinstry? Also, let me know what you think about Aaron Glenn. Is that the guy you guys are looking at? I kind of feel like he's one of the first names that comes to mind. All right, back to the Chicago Bears. This is where I'm going to have JT Tuimoloau come off the board. It could be him or Landon Jackson. I'm honestly cool with either one. I'm going to have the other one come off the board and just a couple of picks to the Dallas Cowboys. So Tuimoloau, he's just been awesome, really. And I'm more of a Sawyer guy, more of a Tyleek Williams guy, but last couple of games for Ohio State, he's been awesome. And you see the size, you see the power, you see the arm length. And it feels like over the last couple of games, one of the knocks on him has been like, he just doesn't have the ability to flip that switch and just become a game wrecker. But a little bit, you can't really say that as much over the last couple of games. And really that's been true across that entire defensive line for Ohio State. They're just like manhandling Tennessee and Oregon up front. So is it just Tuimoloau? No, it's the entire D-line. But I think Tuimoloau is doing his part, right? So getting him in that, other defensive end spot, opposite of Montez Sweat, I really like that as a fit. Again, we'll see with this defense what shape they take moving forward with the new head coach coming in. Obviously, a new defensive scheme then coming in as well. So we'll see. Maybe they want to get someone with more juice, more explosiveness. Maybe it's Jalen Walker in the first round. But if they're going to stick with like 2 big body edges, Tuimoloau and Montez Sweat, that kind of fits with that identity. All right. To the San Francisco 49ers. I'm going to go Jonas Savaiinaea. Could be an interior offensive lineman or could be a tackle. In this blocking scheme, I'd like to see them give him a shot at right tackle. Colton McKivitz isn't bad, but he's on a 1-year deal, so get cheaper, reset at that position, get a long-term guy so you can continue to draft and develop and have 4 years control over. I like the idea of that. Worst comes to worst, you just kick him inside. You're moving Pooney over to left guard probably, and Jonas Savaiinaea becomes your right guard. So no matter how you spin it, there's a pathway for him to fit and start for this offensive line. And he is a great fit for that Shanahan wide zone scheme because movement skills are definitely there. I do think you see the power a little bit more as a pass protector than you do when it comes to displacing people in the run game. So because of that, part of me does think like Mike McGlinchey, right? Like play this guy right tackle versus guard. Because if I have a hard time with him displacing guys with power at right tackle, I think it gets that much harder moving inside of the interior. Anyways, let's move on to the Dallas Cowboys here at 44. This is where Landon Jackson comes off the board. I almost just think him or JTT, could they be your Tank Lawrence replacement? Getting up there in age, make a lot of money. I do wonder if they're eventually looking to replace that. Landon Jackson, his size and power and arm length, make him a high level, an easy projection at the next level as a run defender. But also I think it creates a lot of problems as a pass rusher. Still more to be done there. Interested in the athletic numbers and how that pairs with his frame and his arm length. But, minimum, I think you're getting a solid run defender that could eventually replace someone like, Tank Lawrence. And honestly, if Landon Jackson's your kind of run defender replacement of that and Marshawn Nealon's your pass rush replacement of that, I think there's a way that duo ultimately kind of replaces the production of what DeMarcus Lawrence has been in Dallas. All right, next up, Miami Dolphins. I'm going to give them Marcus Embo. He's listed as an offensive tackle here for PFF, but I think he's an interior offensive lineman, guard or center. And obviously question marks at both those spots right now for the Miami Dolphins. I do think tackle's in play, but you just drafted Patrick Paul. Can we continue to draft and develop him? Austin Jackson just got a new contract. Teron Armstead's still there. Piece to be figured out. And of course, is Tyreek Hill going to be there? A lot of questions to be figured out in Miami. But I think Marcus Embo, plug him in somewhere there in the interior, and he's going to be an upgrade for you somewhere for the Dolphins. All right, Indianapolis Colts, you are the next team up. And I'm going back to the Penn State well, which I don't always love to do, draft from the same school. But you could go Xavier Watts. But after what happened in the Giants game, I have a hard time thinking Gus Bradley's going to be back. So because of that, Xavier Watts would be a great over-the-top, single-high free safety. I also think Nick Cross could be that too. So that's kind of part of why I also went Kevin Winston Jr., because maybe you bring Blackman back, you're looking to move on from Cross, or you let Blackman walk, and you're starting Cross. Kevin Winston Jr., I think, has flexibility to be an in-the-box or over-the-top free safety. So whatever ends up happening there's a pathway for Winston Jr. to get on the field. Ultimately, though, if they decide to, hey, Cross isn't our guy, we could go Watts here and maybe bring Blackman back, and he'll be our box guy. I'm fine with either pathway here, but just because of the flexibility, I lean Winston Jr. from Penn State. All right, back to the Atlanta Falcons. I'm going to go to the corner room. I think they just got to get some more talent there in the secondary. Maxwell Hairston's got really good eyes, really good feel for zone coverage. Not the biggest guy, but a very fluid athlete, and I think he fits in with Raheem Morris. Running a lot of cover three, running a lot of quarters. I think this could be that other outside corner to complement A.J. Terrell. All right, back to the Arizona Cardinals now. I'm going to go Armand Membu. Ultimately, I just haven't been super impressed with Christian Jones and, day 3 pick for a reason. Membu's been fantastic this year at Missouri at right tackle. Now, I just think he should be a little bit higher up on this board for PFF. And I think he could be a guy that competes with Jonah Williams sooner rather than later to be the starting right tackle for the Arizona Cardinals. We'll see how Williams plays. Ultimately, they know his health better than anybody. But if he is the Jonah Williams of past, that's a guy I'm looking to improve upon. I think Armand Membu could be that dude. To the Cincinnati Bengals, let's go with Donovan Ezeraku here. A guy that, man, I'm a big Donovan Ezeraku guy. Really interesting blend of length, first step explosiveness. It's not the most wow-inducing of this class, but it's a good first step. And then natural arm length too, right? So length, bend, plus speed, really interesting concept or a blend of skills there. I don't think he's going to be the world's greatest run defender at the next level. Maybe you bring back Sam Hubbard and you kind of hide him that way. Hubbard to be an early down run defender, Ezeraku to get him on the field, late downs. You also have the edge rusher Miles Murphy from Clemson a few years ago. Maybe he's that early down guy to replace Hubbard. Ezeraku comes on the field in passing situations. Either way you spin it, they just got to get more pass rush on that defensive line. I think Ezeraku definitely brings that to the table. To the Seattle Seahawks, I'm going to go back to the well with this one. Mason Taylor. No, George Fant is just, I think he's a player you can move on from. Get younger, get cheaper. 4 years of control here with Mason Taylor. Very fluid athlete. You can play him in line. He's a solid enough blocker, has enough mass there to play, but also you can get creative enough to move him in the slot. We'll see what this team decides to do with Tyler Lockett. That could open up some slot snaps if you move JSN out wide, right? You can do a lot of different things here with Mason Taylor, get creative with how good of a pass catcher he is. And I just think, hey, in the world where they do move on from Tyler Lockett, they can already do better than George Fant. And Mason Taylor might be a nice way to offset some of the, volume of targets and receiving yards and touchdowns, et cetera, that might be leaving that offense this offseason. Back to the Houston Texans. In the spot, I'm going to go with TJ Sanders. I think this team just get better on the interior defensive line. Really high-end run defender, but with plenty of first-step juice to become an interesting pass rusher at the next level. And I think his skill set plus D'Amico Ryan's leading the way. I want to see what that looks like in the middle of that Houston defensive line. All right, we're getting back to the Buccaneers. This one, I'm going to have Xavier Watts come off the board. It feels like, they're in a perennial, on-again, off-again relationship with Jordan Whitehead. I think that says that, they don't love Whitehead, but he's just familiar enough with what they're doing. They've had some turnover, pretty consistent turnover at that other safety spot. And I think, hey, Antoine Winfield Jr. could be an awesome free safety. Don't get me wrong. But could we just play him in the nickel and in the box? Just let him be a true playmaker and shades of Honey Badger, who, again, I know can play free safety. But, just keep him in the box, close to the line of scrimmage, and cause havoc. Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, kind of the same stuff. Again, he can't play over the top, but close to the line of scrimmage he is, the more impact, the more plays he's getting his nose in. And that's kind of what I want to do with Antoine Winfield Jr. So let's go ahead and get a true over-the-top free safety player in Xavier Watts. Not going to wow you with his speed and athletic testing, but just great football instincts, always in the right place at the right time. I'm a big fan of Xavier Watts. Still got to clean up the tackling a little bit, but there were points this year where it seemed like he made some nice progress in that field. Let's go back to the tight end positions. The Denver Broncos are back on the board. I'm going to go with Gunnar Helm here. We went off-ball linebacker, Jahad Campbell. Could use him as a blitzer. Good fit for Vance Joseph. I think the Broncos are starting to figure out how to use the receivers they have on the roster. Let's just say they do bring back Cam Sutton. Tight end's the next spot where I'm like, you can do better than Lucas Kroll there, or Adam Trautman. You can find an upgrade there. Helm's a really nice athlete, big enough guy to play in line, could block on the line of scrimmage, just everything you're looking for. Prototypical tight end prospect here, and because it's a good class, he's not like the first or second tight end off the board. Instead, he lasts a little bit longer. I still think middle of the second round, good spot to grab a Gunnar Helm, and I do think a good fit for what Sean Payton is looking for. Next up, the Pittsburgh Steelers. I'm going to go with Zy Alexander here. Go to the corner well. Interesting size and athleticism, 6'2", right around that 200-pound mark. Some really nice tape in zone coverage. You can see the fluid athletic profile that he has on display there. But also, again, body type that kind of says should be a good man coverage guy. So some flexibility with whatever Pittsburgh wants to do in the secondary. I think there's some rethinking to be done there, right? Like Joey Porter Jr. is a great man coverage guy, and he's definitely good at that. Can you find a way? And I mean, they do play zone coverage. Like no one team is only running man, right? So I'm not just trying to say one size fits all. Do they want another man coverage guy though to fit that? Or do they want like a Dante Jackson kind of fluid athlete, zone coverage specialist? Question marks for what they want to do going into next year at that corner spot. But Cam Sutton wasn't great. James Pierce is someone who should just not be seen a football field. And Dante Jackson, I know he got a good amount of interceptions, but that's just kind of right place, right time. Watch the entire season. He's ultimately nothing to write home about. They can get better at that spot. Zy Alexander adds enough to intrigue me to draft him here in the second round for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Back to the Carolina Panthers, their second pick here in the second round. I'm going to go to Sebastian Castro. Kind of like what I talked about with, Antoine Winfield Jr. Getting these, again, I value the slot more than most people. This isn't just necessarily the greatest slot, corner class. But Sebastian Castro to me is like an impact slot player at the next level that I'm willing to take a shot on here in the second round. And I just don't think they have like a true difference maker, play him close to the line of scrimmage, help and run defense, sniff out screens, and also be a difference maker in coverage as well. I just don't think there's that type of player in the secondary for Carolina Panthers, right? And it's a defense that needs edge, it needs outside corner, it needs slot, it could use some safety help, right? Like it helps help at linebacker, right? They need help at all three levels, right? But I think like a difference maker and Sebastian Castro who can help really in both facets, right? Be someone you trust to defend slot receivers, but also be an impact player against the run. This helps even everything out for that entire Carolina defense. So I don't think Sebastian Castro like superstar potential, but just like, especially for a team that needs it, this guy could fill up the box score really, really quick and just become a really effective player in a number of different ways for, I assume, Ejiro Evero. I assume he'll be back as a DC. Then we get to the Green Bay Packers here at 56. I think they could use some more juice on the interior defensive line. In that game against Arizona State, especially early on, you saw what Alfred Collins does. You don't put a tight end on this guy on fourth down because he's just going to light him up and he's going to make a TFL like you saw in that Arizona State game, right? And he'll make a good tackle against a Cam Scatterbo type. But good first step, good explosiveness, plays like he's 320 pounds, very stout run defender. And again, with that first step quicks, I'm kind of interested to see if he could be that heir replacement or heir apparent to a Kenny Clark. Could he be that running mate that they're looking to add with Devontae Wyatt? Has Devontae Wyatt lived up to your first-round expectations? Packers fans, let me know your thoughts. Ultimately, I think it's a spot they can add one more guy at. Alfred Collins, a rock-solid guy to add to that room. All right, back to the Los Angeles Chargers. Please, God, let me have Caleb Johnson or Marion Hampton on the Los Angeles Chargers next year. I was a big Kamani Vidal guy, but honestly, I even think Caleb Johnson plus Vidal, that could be a nice 1-2 punch moving forward. We'll see what they decide to do with J.K. Dobbins, but injury history, it's probably good to add a guy to that room anyways. And really what I'm thinking here is like, instead of a running back trio where touches are going to Dobbins, Vidal, and Gus Johnson, what if we had an offseason or a running back room next year that, let's say they do bring back Dobbins for a 1-year deal. Let's just, hypothetically speaking here. Those touches then become Dobbins and Johnson 50-50 plus a sprinkle of Vidal in there. Sign me up for that. I'm way more interested in that. But power to run between the tackles, good vision, long speed to make the big plays, enough shiftiness to make a guy miss in the phone booth. It's just kind of a little bit of everything. A jack of all trades type of running back with enough special and enough big playability there to where you still want to draft him somewhere in the first 2 rounds. Big fan of Caleb Johnson. He is my RB3 at the moment. Washington here back on the clock at 58. I'm going to go Kyle Kennard, a guy who can win with size, power, arm length, and motor, really. Like a guy that just won't give up on a play. Add him into that defensive line mix where they're looking for a difference maker. I don't think Kyle Kennard has special, like high-end potential, but could be a pretty quick day in and day out, play in and play out starter for this Washington defensive line. Minimum, you get him on the field for passing downs because he's just got a little bit more juice than I think some of the guys currently on the roster. But with his size, I think he could be a 3-down guy for the Washington Commanders. Then we get to the Ravens here at 59. We're going to have our first true interior offensive lineman. Again, Jonas Savaiinaea. You could play him at right tackle for the 49ers, but I'm going to go Tyler Booker, left guard for the Alabama Crimson Tide. Really solid pass protector. I think a really good fit for that gap scheme. I think the PFF grades aren't awesome against the run, but I also wonder if part of that's just like the Kalen DeBoer effect on that offense and just a few of the other pieces in the mix there for Alabama. But I think he's going to bring that strength that you want in the gap scheme, prototypical size. The weight's not going to be in question. And again, NFL-ready pass protector from my standpoint. So I think an easy guy to plug and play right away. You let Patrick McCarry and Daniel Falele and Andrew Voorhees figure out that right guard spot. Let that be a problem to solve for next offseason. And one of those 3 guys you can feel comfortable about starting. Odds are, if the young guys don't take a step forward, it's just Patrick McCarry, kind of all reliable for the Baltimore Ravens. Just play him. And if he's your fifth offensive lineman starting, McCarry's just fine. All right, couple of picks here for the Buffalo Bills. I'm going to go with Josiah Stewart, edge rusher from Michigan, who might be a little bit light to play on every down, right? But that being said, man, he is just a pass down winner, right? Ton of speed, ton of bend. Go watch the Texas tape, and that's against good competition, right? Like that, you still see it there. I'm trying to think of the other game where him and the rest of that Michigan defensive line just absolutely lit it up. The USC game. Watch the USC game. If it's kind of like the Uman Malin discussion. If you just want to see how he wins, watch the Georgia game. If you want to see how Josiah Stewart and some of the other guys on that D-line for Michigan win, watch the USC game. It's unbelievable. They lit up the Trojans' offensive line. That's the game to look to if you want like a Josiah Stewart type. And for Buffalo, I think they have enough pieces already in-house to play early downs, be the run defenders. Assuming AJ Epinesa is back, him and Rousseau are solid enough against the run. If you get into third down passing situations, it's 3rd and 13, it's the fourth quarter, you're up by 10 points. And we'll see what happens with Von Miller, too. That might be ultimately the pass rusher you're looking to replace. Josiah Stewart in those situations is going to thrive. And just like the Uman Mielen, maybe he only plays 400 to 550 snaps, but if those snaps are all in high leverage pass down situations, he's going to be a super effective player and someone that your fan base is going to be excited about as a pass rusher moving forward. Yes, he could add a little bit of mass to help him become a better run defender, but focus on what he can do as a pass rusher for a very good team that will be playing ahead more often than they're not. All right, next pick here for Buffalo Bills. Just want to throw out Lathan Ransom. I think he's been awesome in the college football playoff. Feels like a lot more single high for the Ohio State Buckeyes. Caleb Downs just playing center field, and he's just one of the best players in college football. Lathan Ransom, a really nice box player. I do think he's going to be a solid athletic tester, and that will help kind of give me an idea of can he play split high looks, which he has done this year for Ohio State as well. Don't get me wrong. As long as he tests out okay athletically, I'm comfortable with him being one of those two typically split safety looks, right? A lot of cover 2, a lot of cover 4 for Sean McDermott, a lot of too high shells. But I do think also his run stopping ability, if you are going to play too high, him crashing down towards the line of scrimmage helps ease some of the concerns that you have if you're going to have this base too high defense. Teams might run on us. Lathan Ransom's going to have something to say about that. All right, next up, we get the Philadelphia Eagles. I'm going to go with Josh Connerly Jr., a guy that you're going to see in first-round mocks. You really are. And I think PFF actually just had a first-round mock with him in it from Trevor Sikkema. First-round ability, and he got a lot better in pass protection this year. I think he needs to add about 10 pounds worth of mass for me to feel a little bit better about him as a down-in, down-out starter and to feel really good about him as a run defender at the next level. But a Jeff Stoutland we trust, man. Like this guy's tools in a Jeff Stoutland, environment, they're going to make it work. And I think you flip him over to the right side. Yes, that's a complication of the matter for sure. But again, Jeff Stoutland we trust. Flip him over to the right side. Let this be your Lane Johnson heir apparent. You could go Ajanai Cornelius if you really feel like Connerly can't make the flip. That's a conversation to be had with him and the Eagles. I can't see a world where that would be an issue. Flip him over to the right side. Build upon the potential that's there. How many steps he took in the right direction this year at Oregon? Jeff Stoutland, get him there. That's your Lane Johnson replacement of the future. Last two picks, like I said, I'm not done drafting edge. And Uman Mielen and Ashton Gelati are two very different types of edge rushers. One who wins with speed and bend and finesse. One that wins with an absolute killer first punch and a ton of power. And, at 6'3", 275, it's kind of got it interesting, but a little more like squatty, but man, just an absolute monster and a power rusher there in Ashton Gelati. Love the 1-2 punch there with him and Uman Mielen. They're already get creative with how they use Hutchinson. They're willing to line him up over the interior offensive line. So there's a way and there's a world where you can get all three of those guys on the field, plus Aleem McNeil, of course, and of course, DJ Reader. So just like the Lions last year, we're not going to let the secondary be the reason that cost us the Super Bowl. We're not going to let edge rusher be what holds us back from a Super Bowl here. So I'm doubling down at edge, just like they did at corner last year. To the Kansas City Chiefs, last thing that we'll talk about in today's video, Charles Grant. He's accepted his Senior Bowl invite. Really excited to see, because that's a huge spot for a guy like that. Playing from a smaller school, but getting a ton of, top 64 hype, we'll call it. First 2 rounds. The tape looks fantastic, but again, level of competition is going to be the question mark. Can he answer those questions at the Senior Bowl? If so, he may go in the first round. Like he may be the Chiefs pick at 32, not 64. But for the time being, I feel like right here at 64 makes a lot of sense. And obviously left tackle's been a headache, to say the least, this year for the Kansas City Chiefs. But guys, that's going to do it for my updated 2-round mock draft. Let me hear your thoughts, whether you're watching on YouTube. Let me hear it in the comment section. Leave us a like, subscribe to the channel. We're going to continue to be adding content here and trying to build out the YouTube channel, of course, on top of what we do on X, which if you're watching there, hit the like here. Be sure to give us a follow. Leave me some of your thoughts in, reply to this, or you can shoot me a DM. I'm happy to answer any questions or talk any prospects that you want to hear me talk about. But I hope you guys enjoyed the updated 2-round mock draft. Be sure to check out 32 Beat Writers for more content to come. And of course, we're not that far away from the offseason. A hot time to follow 32 Beat Writers. We'll have you covered for every bit of coaching news, coordinator news, free agency news, and of course, NFL draft coverage with yours truly. But I hope you all have a fantastic rest of your day, and that's going to do it for me. Until next time, we are signing off.